Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and today we're talking the whole year of 2021. You see, it's that time of year again as we go to talk about our favorite releases, the games that came out and made a big impact on us. Whether it was something deeply moving or just a lot of fun to play, games are generally an incredible form of media for entertainment, but often more than that. During COVID, they've been such an important aspect of many social lives as a way to spend together online where we can't meet physically. So to say the least, it has been a good year for game releases, especially for Monster Hunter fans. Now, I'm sure our lists are going to vary. Maybe you'd even order them differently, but that's the fun of discussions like this, so do let me know in the comments how yours stacks up. Personally, though, there are games I'd love to try and haven't had a chance to this year, so I'll give some an honorable mention at the end. But with all that said, here are my top 5 games of 2021. Starting from the bottom then, number 5 was a surprise hit that blew up this year. That is, of course, Valheim, the insanely popular and successful sandbox survival game from a tiny Swedish dev team, Iron Gate Studio. Releasing into its early access early in the year, back in February, Valheim skyrocketed into popularity to the staggering shock of the dev team itself. It was created by just 5 people. The story of Valheim's success is actually an important one for the game industry as a whole. If you don't know, Valheim was the open-world sandbox survival game in which you were playing as a sort of fallen Viking in the afterlife. Your goal is simple to start. You just gather resources and make some tools, which allows you to build a shelter. And then you go on to build weapons, then a bigger base, boats to sail, more exploration. You start smelting, you go from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age and beyond. You overcome the overwhelming odds bit by bit, snowballing into the insane fortresses and powerful warriors we see today, all to challenge the 5 main bosses of the game. Each bit of progression allows you to enter a new biome safely, well, kinda safely, on a procedurally generated map with new enemies, challenges, resources that require different tools and expertise to get. It's a classic survival sim with all of the good fundamentals in place, but enhanced by the real threat that is the world, and of course that main mission of defeating those bosses, which can only be summoned with the right offerings that you have to gather beforehand in the different zones that it's located around. Visually, it was an incredible mix of low-res 3D graphics that actually led to a shockingly distinctive and unique style. At first glance, it might look hilarious, but can actually be quite beautiful and impressive at many moments in the game. Then there's the extra depth to the game, things like the skill systems, the fact that you can play together as a 10-man team, have everyone take on different focuses so everyone gets the most out of their skills. And I don't know what it was exactly that worked for this game, maybe just a combination of things, but it felt perfect, man. The right amount of grind, the right amount of exploration and mystery, the right amount of progression, the right amount of challenge in the combat. While I wouldn't say there was insane depth to everything, there was enough everywhere and a great variety to it. And as I said, it was made by a tiny studio. 5 people made this game. And if that hasn't convinced you, just 1 month into its release, it had sold 5 million copies. So that was an outrageous success, all based on a simple but cool concept, executed well, with no BS, you know, just a fun game. If you haven't tried Valheim and like anything survival sandbox, then do yourself a favor and try it. Number 4 then has to be a damn good game to be above Valheim then, doesn't it? Well, I think this is. Subnautica Below Zero is one of my favorite sequels of any game I've ever played. The original Subnautica is one of my favorite games of all time. You find yourself in the future and you find yourself stranded on an alien planet having crash landed there. That planet is mostly water and you've got basically nothing but a life pod. Fortunately, that pod is equipped with a futuristic crafting machine that just needs resources. You're just going to need to brave the deep depth of this alien ocean and hey, not drown or get eaten. It is absolutely terrifying as a game, but also beautiful at the best moments. Yeah, it's apparently another survival crafting game on my list, but I swear it's good. The original Subnautica was put into early access all the way back in 2014. I played so many versions of the game during its development and was blown away by the otherworldly areas and creatures and designs that they were adding. The technology was one of the best aspects for me because you could just fabricate things out of the raw material and turn it into something really cool. Using a blow-up fish to quickly rush to the surface, make yourself some pipes so you've got like an oxygen supply deep down, or the base building, the moments of building your first Seamoth, or the massive submarine, the Cyclops, the powerhouse of the prawn suit, the Spider-Man roping it could do. And as slowly more areas were added, new technology, new aliens, new fear as we enter a new area we don't know. And you hear the call of something out there, something big. It was a unique and often terrifying experience. I'd be following the game, each major update during that early access. But I think that actually spoiled the uncertainty that I lost when the game finally released with its story. Below Zero, the sequel, was set on the same planet 2 years later, but this time as a new character, at the frozen north in an entirely new biome and setting, with all new technology to play with, lots more land exploration, and of course the horrors of that deep, dark ocean is back because you don't know what's in there anymore. So this time I decided to wait until the full release to actually properly play it. That way I could go in blind and get the true experience, rather than, you know, step by step each major update. So when it finished development, releasing in May of this year, it was my time to play it. You got core mechanic changes, new quality of life, a much more dedicated and well-connected story, and of course the new region to explore fresh. It was everything I'd hoped for, and I feel like it hit the nail on the head on most things. It was overall more cinematic. The story was told with actual NPCs in the game instead of just isolated audio logs. And while not as big of a game as Subnautica, I still felt like Below Zero felt the lessons they'd learned from the original and executed it very well. And I very much envy anyone who gets to play Subnautica or Below Zero fresh for its first experience. Moving on to number 3 then, it's time to start talking Monster Hunter. My number 3 is Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. I honestly didn't know what to expect with this one. This was the follow-up to the first game that came out in 2016, and it looked totally different to the one we got now. I'd been told that it was very much like Monster Hunter Pokemon. Conceptually, I think that's cool, but I wasn't sure if I'd enjoy the gameplay for long, if it would be overly simple, and, you know, I hadn't really been into Pokemon since I was a kid. So I was very, very happy to find a really cool experience in Stories 2. Not just because the story was interesting and engaging, but no, the gameplay was honestly solid. I was finally hooked on a Pokemon style game again, but it wasn't even Pokemon. To go out and collect specific monsters and make them my monsties, you know, to have a personal favorite team of my favorite monsters and then ride them around was really cool. The detail of the gameplay was so good too. Combat wise, you got that holy trinity of which attack type beats what, right? But then the clever addition of part breaking to target specific areas with the right weapon type. Then the elements playing into it, the steady progression of the challenges with the boss fights that add new mechanics that you have to overcome in clever ways by predicting and working out what's coming next based on the behavior of the monster. There's the great feeling of unlocking a new area because you now have a monstie that can swim or climb or eventually even fly. That massive roster of different kinship attacks that go nuts with their world-ending level attacks, or even the silly and fun joke concepts. On God, the build, it was so good with the writer channeling. Each monstie having its own genes, the gene levels, the bingo cards that you need to position carefully to enhance them further, which monsties have great base stats, which monsties work well together, and then of course then the other side of it with PvP. There was a lot going on. Depth on depth that I never really expected to feel in a Pokemon style game. So yeah, while the story was good, while the world was good, it was the gameplay that kept me interested the whole way, and that is not something I was expecting. So yeah, I was not sure if Stories 2 would be my thing, and I'm really glad that it was. And as I said earlier, you know, Monster Hunter fans had a really good year in 2021. So, as we move on to number 2, this is a big one. I'm talking about Final Fantasy Endwalker, and yeah, I'll do it without any spoilers. If it wasn't for the fact that I make videos on Rage Gaming, I might not have even been playing Endwalker right now. Josh convinced me to do a series where I tried a bunch of different MMOs, and one of those was Final Fantasy XIV. I'd known about it the whole time I was playing WoW for all those years, but I'd never given it a fair try. And I don't know why. When I finally played it earlier this year, it was amazing. A slow burn in Realm Reborn that paid off completely. Straight into Heavensward, which was a masterpiece of a story, and the characters, my god. Stormblood was, alright, it was good, but it was nowhere near as good. And then Shadowbringers, god damn, one of the best stories and MMO gameplay experiences I have ever had. I could not believe that the game had just been there this whole time for like multiple years while I was just trying to enjoy BFA or even Shadowlands, and wow, what a waste of time that was. I feel so lucky to have got into the game long enough before Endwalker has actually released so I can play that at its launch. Endwalker being the culmination of a 10-year story. Not the end of the MMO itself, if you don't know, but the end of the story it's been telling so far. I was wondering though, despite my really high opinion of the game, if Endwalker could live up to the insane expectation and hype. And somehow I can say with confidence that yeah, they really did. This was the best story I've ever experienced in an MMO, and easily one of the best I've ever experienced flat out. The villains, if we can call them that, are often quite understandable and relatable. Things are not black and white in this world and ours. And then the gameplay, man. Oh my god. The classes, or jobs as they're called, had amazing updates in Endwalker. There's so many quality of life improvements, new core abilities that look awesome, or complete reworks where needed. And it's not perfect. You know, I do hear a lot from like bard players that aren't happy. Summoners have a totally new class there, and it might be too simple or too different for the old summoner players. But en masse, they've done a good job with these updates. Black Mage is a great example of the importance of quality of life improvements making for a much better experience. The new jobs, Reaper and Sage, are awesome additions. I'm maining a Reaper now, and we just cleared the first extreme trials, which was a lot of fun. The APM of Reaper feels so good, it's so fast. The flashy nature of the gameplay mixed with a well-designed rotation, I'm really enjoying it. Sage, on the other hand, looks brilliant, a proper DPS healer in the game, so I'm looking forward to learning that. But it's not just stuff like that, you know, Professions had huge updates, the game had a lot of general improvements like the new Aetheryte teleports. The MMO got better even if you aren't playing Endwalker yet. It's in such a good state that they've had to stop selling it because the servers are so over capacity and they can't put up any more because of the shortage because of COVID. So yeah, I'd tell you to play Final Fantasy XIV if you have any interest in like fantasy stories or MMOs in general, but you can't, not until they resolve this problem because so many people are still playing to this day. I'm so glad I finally played this game. I can't recommend it enough, but it's my number 2. So if I've got that much good to say about Final Fantasy XIV, why is it number 2? Well, you know, first of all, it's an expansion rather than a new game release entirely. And there was also another important game to me this year. My number 1 game of 2021 is obviously...
If I could just interrupt for a little moment, obviously for both me, Hollow, and Cotton, Rise is our game of the year. It is fantastic, it's the latest Monster Hunter, and it's oogles of fun. And let me tell you, I don't use the word oogles often. But if I had to commit to a game of the year that wasn't Rise, it would almost certainly be It Takes Two. I would say it's the best co-op game I have ever played, certainly in regards to the category of being in the same room as the person that you played it through, and me and Lauren/Light going through it was just utterly fantastic. It's charming, there's so much variety, the mechanics are fun and interesting, the puzzles are not too difficult but not too simple, and they shake it up a lot, and basically if I had to put to a word, single commitment word, it would be charming. It's one of the most charming games I've ever played, and certainly the most charming game of this year, and I am so glad I got to experience it. So, yeah, It Takes Two. If you have a friend, or a partner, or anyone that you can go through the whole experience in the same room with, it honestly is one of the best game experiences you can have, and I cannot wait to see what comes next.
Shut your trap, you gabbin' gobbler! I think I just called you a turkey. Anyways, my favorite game this year, NonMonster Hunter, of course, because that would make it very obvious, was Deathloop. This game is incredibly interesting. The game world is stuck in a one-day time loop. Your character, Colt, has no idea what is going on, and the game follows you on your journey to unravel this mystery and follow it to its endpoint. The gameplay is essentially a hard mix between a Metroidvania game and a roguelike. There are 4 levels that you can visit at 4 different times of day, and every level is different at each time of day. But at the end of the day, nearly everything is reset to how it was at the beginning of the day, meaning that you have to slowly, one day at a time, trial and error, work out the exact perfect set of objectives, the exact perfect route, find the right tools for the job that allow you to do everything you need to do within a single day of in-game time. There are so many genuinely different gameplay options, and a ridiculous amount of ways to approach each objective. I played through this game twice, entirely, in totally different ways, and that's saying a lot for me because I can count on one hand the number of single-player games that I have played through entirely more than once without some sort of New Game Plus mode. So yeah, Deathloop, really fun time, my game of the year, and now I'll pass it back to Aaron before I get interrupted by someone, who would possibly
Shut your trap, you goblin! What did he say? Turkey? I don't know. Our number 1 then, obviously, Rise. Where do I begin though, seriously? The introduction of the wirebugs, the palamutes, the reintroduction of hunter arts in the form of silkbinds, bringing back old favorites while introducing new ones, the new roster of monsters with their really cool theme, the story of the Rampage was genuinely good, the return of old weapon and armor design designs that are a bit more over the top and silly. The quality of life improvements like the new way the healing works, half instant, half over time. The new meal system with dangos, giving us a whole new level of specific food buffs to go for. Wyvern riding, the endemic life you can use in combat. Something as simple and as awesome as sharpening your weapon while moving thanks to the Palamute. As the Palamute as well, like the terrain climbing, that led to new map design that we'd never seen before that caters to our new movement. It's awesome. They gave us great things like craftable decorations, which are unlocked after you defeat a specific monster, giving us an easier way to target what you need for this or that build. And they minimized the RNG systems down to just one with the talismans. And something as simple as, how the monsters look and feel, how they move, being very worldy compared to the old, more clunky, slow style. I really couldn't believe it was on the Switch. I've played Rise to death, I've made countless videos and streams for this game, and I still feel like I barely scratched the surface of builds and weapons and playstyles. I won't say the game is perfect though. Personally, I wanted a bit more difficulty towards the end. I think Apex monsters were wasted entirely with no armor sets and skills, giving you no proper reason to hunt them consistently. But overall, obviously, I think this is an insane next step for the series. And as we go into what will be the G rank with Sunbreak just a year later, it's going to be such a good time. One thing I would love to hear in the future though is cross-play Monster Hunter. At least for Rise, we could do it, with the Switch and PC. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's happening yet. Rise is not just one of my favorite Monster Hunter games or one of my favorite games this year, but definitely one of my favorite games I've ever played. I loved it, and that should really come as no surprise. But that's my list in order. Honestly, I could probably combine Endwalker and Rise into one spot if I could, but let me know what your list was like. Did you have different games, or maybe there was a different order? I also want to give a special shout out to a few games that I haven't talked about here, like Kenna, Bridge of Spirits, or Metroid Dread, Age of Empires 4, and even Halo Infinite is doing shockingly well. But I haven't had time to play a lot of these games, even though I would like to, so maybe next year I'll find the time. For now though, that is my list. Let me know your thoughts, and until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.